everything this county gives. You drink it long enough, you start to think that's just what water is. My grandfather drank it 60 years. His teeth went black by 45. He said the ironwell built this family, and the ironwell would take our lives. Ironwell blues, ironwell deep, ironwell keeps what you promised to keep. Ironwell cold, ironwell true, ironwell's been waiting for you. Ironwell blues, ironwell night, ironwell never let anyone fight you. Just drink and you swallow and you bow your head. Ironwell blues until you're dead. Threw a stone in the ironwell once, in a fit of rage and greed. He said he heard it fall for a full 10 seconds before it hit beneath. He said something answered from below the stone, there wasn't wine. He covered the well with the old barn door and never spoke of it again. Ironwell blues, ironwell deep, ironwell keeps what you promised to keep. Ironwell cold, ironwell true, you just drink and you swallow and you bow your head. Ironwell blues until you're dead. I'm signing the deed and I'm gone. I'm leaving the ironwell to whoever wants whatever darkness lives in the stone. But sometimes in the city late at night, I wake with that taste in my mouth, that iron and blood and rust on my tongue, calling me back to the south. There's a crossing out on the saltpine road, where the two black highways meet. The locals leave their offerings in the mud at the crossroads, at the feet
of a wooden post with no name carved in it, and a rusted weather vane.
I've driven past it 40 years and always felt the cold before the rain. Saltpine crossing, saltpine night. Saltpine is where you give up the fight. Leave your sorrow at the wooden post, leave an offering for the one you love most. Saltpine crossing, saltpine wind. Saltpine is where the road bends in,
where you turn around to keep on through.
Saltpine crossing is waiting for you. A woman left her wedding ring one March, pressed into the black mud deep.
A man left both his work boots there in May, said he had no more use for feet.
A child left the drawing folded small of a family standing whole.
I saw it once before the rain took it. Something about it took my soul.
Saltpine crossing, saltpine night. Saltpine is where you give up the fight. Leave your sorrow at the wooden post, leave an offering for the one you love most. Saltpine crossing, saltpine wind. Saltpine is where the road bends in,
where you turn around to keep on through.
Saltpine crossing is waiting for you. Last autumn I drove out to the saltpine road with something in my coat.
I won't tell what I left at the wooden post. I won't write down what I wrote.
I drove home with both hands steady on the wheel, and the radio on low. Something lifted off my chest out there,
something I was ready to let go. The bindweed grows up everything you build. It doesn't ask permission for the climb. It wraps around the fence post and the mailbox, and it does it every time. You think you've pulled it out and then it's back with twice the roots than before. The bindweed to the core.
Tried to leave me twice and came back twice with the bindweed on your hands. I told you what I was before the start. I told you all my plans. I said I'm not the love that lets you go. I said I'm not the gentle kind. You laughed and said you didn't mind bindweed. You were wrong, and that's fine. Bindweed lover, bindweed vine. I wrap myself around everything of thine. Bindweed love is the love that stays, even when you pull and cut and raise. Bindweed lover, bindweed hold. You'll find me in the roots when you grow old. I'm underneath whatever life you build. Bindweed lover, I am filled. You're gone now to another county, another garden, another fence. I hope you find a tame and gentle love. I hope it makes some sense. But in 10 years when you clear the bindweed growing up your new back wall, you'll put your hand in the green of it and know I was never gone at all. You swore to me at the kitchen table with your hand on the old family book. You swore the same way your father swore to your mother, with that same sidelong, crooked look. Your father's vows burned down the house eventually. Your mother stood in the cold. I should've recognized the family pattern. I was 22 and bold. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn word, driest kindling you ever heard. Touch a match to what a man has sworn, and watch the whole thing catch and burn. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn flame, burning as how promises became ash on my hands, ash on my floor. Tindersworn vow, I don't swear no more. Vows in a box on the shelf for 11 years. I kept them right. I took them out and read them on our anniversary by the dying candlelight. The
The words were good, the words were beautiful, the way your father's words were too. The vows were true when you were saying them. I know that much is true. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn word, dry as kindling you ever heard. Touch a match to what a man has sworn, and watch the whole thing catch and burn. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn flame, burning is how promises became. Ash on my hands, ash on my floor, tindersworn vow. I don't swear no last winter in the yard, watched every vow go bright and black. Some things you keep until you're ready not to, and then you don't take back. The kids watched from the window wondering. I told them it was just old paper. They seemed to understand the way kids do, that something ended in the vapor. The river came up in the night last spring, took everything up to the sill. It left behind a coat of silver mud and a silence deep and still. My daughter played beside that river bank from the day that she could walk. Now the river plays her music back to me on the reeds when the night birds talk. Siltwater, siltwater, carry her name down to the sea where all rivers came. Siltwater, hold what I couldn't hold. Siltwater, keep her from the cold. Siltwater, siltwater, sing to me the lullaby she used to ask of me. I stand at the bank and I'll call to the deep. Siltwater, give her back her sleep. The fishermen say that on Midsummer's Eve a girl walks out on a stone. Her dress is the color of a river clay, and she never walks alone. They say she leads the young ones in who follow her glowing light. I know my daughter's face in any dark, I know her voice any night. Siltwater, siltwater, carry her name down to the sea where all rivers came. Siltwater, hold what I couldn't hold. Siltwater, keep her from the cold. Siltwater, siltwater, sing to me the lullaby she used to ask of me. I'll stand at the bank and I'll call to the deep. Siltwater, give her back her sleep. this river 40 years. I know its moods like my own blood. I know it takes without apology and gives back only mud. But every night I set a lantern out upon the old stone wall, just in case my daughter finds her way and needs a light to follow home withal.
Never told my mother what I did that summer in the nettle field. I was 17 and someone else, and I never fully healed. The man who asked me didn't ask me right. I didn't have the words to say. The nettle field is houses now in rows, but I remember every blade of gray. Nettle confession, nettle shame. Nettle grows back wild and fast the same. You can build your houses on the field, but the nettle underneath won't yield. Nettle confession, nettle scar. You are still exactly what you are. I'll speak it to the ground, if not to God. Nettle confession, blood and mud and sod. My daughter found me crying in the yard last summer by the garden wall. She asked me what was wrong, and I almost let the whole confession fall. I swallowed it back down like iron water, like I always learned to do. There are things you keep to keep the ones you love from knowing what you've been through. Nettle confession, nettle shame. Nettle grows back wild and fast the same. You can build your houses on the field, but the nettle underneath won't yield. Nettle confession, nettle scar. You are still exactly what you are. I'll speak it to the ground, if not to God. Nettle confession, blood and mud and sod. I'm old enough now to understand that silence is its own kind of sin, that the things we bury in the nettle field keep growing from within. So I'll stand at the edge of what I was and say the name of what occurred. Maybe the nettle field will hear me finally and let me go on. Just my word. We were born on the dirt roads between the mountains, where the pavement gave up and the gravel began. We grew up on the songs that our grandparents carried from countries that no longer held the same land. We learned that the dark is just part of the singing. We learned that the wound is part of the song. We learned that the ones who are gone aren't gone fully. We carry the dead as we carry along. Dirt road song for the living and dead. Dirt road song for the words left unsaid. Dirt road songs rising up from the clay. Dirt road songs at the end of the day. Sing it low, sing it long, sing it into the ground. Sing it for everyone lost and not found. Dirt road songs in the throat and the chest. Dirt road songs for the ones who need a rest. We have worked in the fields and the mines and the kitchens. We have worked in the cold and the heat and the dark. We have buried our children and buried our parents, and buried the things that were closest to heart. We didn't choose beauty, we found it in hardship. We didn't choose song, song chose us instead. The dirt road song is the sound of a people who sang because silence would leave them for dead. Dirt road songs for the living and dead. Dirt road songs for the words left unsaid. Dirt road songs rising up from the clay. Dirt road songs at the end of the day. Sing it low, sing it long, sing it into the ground. Sing it for everyone lost and not found. Dirt road songs in the throat and the chest. Dirt road songs for the ones who need a rest. Now we stand at the edge of an unfamiliar country, where the old songs are fading and nobody's sure whether the singing is worth what the singing costs, whether the old words still open the door. But I'll sing till the dirt road is swallowed by concrete. I'll sing till the last gravel stone is covered in black. I'll sing for the ones who came before and carried. I'll sing to bring something of all of them back. Duskweed grows at the edge of every road. nobody uses no more. It's the first thing that comes back when people leave, and the last thing to show at the door. I've been driving roads the duskweed's taken back for 20 years, it seems, following the roads that maps don't carry, following other people's dreams. Duskweed road, duskweed light, duskweed's all that's left at the end of the night. Duskweed follows everything that ends. Duskweed grows where the broken fence bends. Duskweed road, duskweed song, duskweed is where the living don't belong. I'll drive till the road is swallowed whole. Duskweed road is good for my soul. I stopped at a diner outside of nowhere. The woman behind the counter knew. She poured my coffee without me asking, the way tired people do for tired people who. She didn't ask me where I was going, she just refilled and looked away. Some kindness doesn't need a word around it. Some kindness just lets you stay. Duskweed road, duskweed light, duskweed's all that's left at the end of the night. Duskweed follows everything that ends. Duskweed grows where the broken fence bends. Duskweed road, duskweed song, duskweed is where the living don't belong. I'll drive till the road is swallowed whole. Duskweed road is good for my soul. I'll go back eventually, I suppose, back to whatever I called home, but not until the duskweed calls me back. Not until I've been alone long enough to feel the hollow that I carry, long enough to put a name to it, long enough to know if what I left behind is worth returning to or quit.
mother's dress on the wedding day, a dress the color of old snow. The groom stood waiting at the altar rails with a smile that the guests didn't know. It was the smile of a man who owns a thing, not the smile of a man in love. She walked the aisle and she knew the difference, and she knew what it would come to show. Cindervow bride, cindervow flame, burning is the end of every name. She took the ring and she made the vow, but she planned the ending from the now. Cindervow bride, cindervow ash, love that owns you has to burn to ash. She smiled through the whole ceremony long. Cindervow bride, no one heard her song. They say the fire started in the parlor around about 2:30. The groom was found against the garden wall in his boots without a shoe. She was gone before the rooster crowed, her mother's dress on the garden gate. The sheriff said he'd never seen such a thing, but he didn't search too late. Cindervow bride, cindervow flame, burning is the end of every name. She took the ring and she made the vow, but she planned the ending from the now. Cindervow bride, cindervow ash, love that owns you has to burn to ash. She smiled through the whole ceremony long. Cindervow bride, no one heard her song. Have passed and the house is gone, just a scar where the foundation stands. They say she's seen in town some market days, an old woman with calloused hands. She never married again and never spoke of the husband or the dress. She tends a garden and she hums a tune that the neighbors can't quite guess.
Mudcrow sits on the old levee fence and watches the water go by. He's been there every morning for 30 years, at least that long by my eye. My father called it a bad omen bird, said it shows up when someone will drown. He said the mudcrow watched the levee break in '65 and watched the whole Third War go down. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow eye, watching everything before it dies. Mudcrow perched on the sorrow fence, watching since before it all made sense. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow wing, black against the sun, announcing everything. It never cries and it never calls, it just watches from the levee wall. seen it on the morning a child was lost. I've seen it the day the mill closed down. I've seen it sitting on my own front gate the morning I nearly left this town. I walked out to it with my packed up bags. It looked at me and didn't move. I put my bags back in the hall that day. I don't know what I had to prove. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow eye, watching everything before it dies. Mudcrow perched on the sorrow fence, watching since before it all made sense. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow wing, black against the sun, announcing everything. It never cries and it never calls, it just watches from the levee wall. Last spring I found the mudcrow on the ground beneath the levee fence at dawn, lying still with its wings spread perfect wide, like it knew how to be gone. I buried it beside the water's edge, I marked the spot with a piece of white stone. Since then the levee's been quiet in the mornings, and I've been more alone. Foreman told us God was on our side, while the mine paid him the rest. We shoveled out the coal in the dark all day, with the black dust in our chest. My daddy coughed his lungs up at 52. My brother lost 3 fingers to the saw. The company sent flowers to the funeral. That's the only grace I saw. Gravel sermon, gravel word, gospel of the working man unheard. Gravel in my lungs and gravel in my bed, gravel in the words that never get said. Gravel sermon, gravel truth, nobody's saving nobody's youth. I've been preaching to the dirt and the stone. Gravel sermon, dead and gone alone. Brought a preacher to the union hall, said the Lord would intervene, but the Lord don't cross the company line, and he never has, if you know what I mean. We struck for 17 cold days in March. The scabs came by truck. The preacher prayed for both sides equally, which means he prayed for the ones with luck. Gravel sermon, gravel word, gospel of the working man unheard. Gravel in my lungs and gravel in my bed, gravel in the words that never get said. Gravel sermon, gravel truth, nobody's saving nobody's youth. I've been preaching to the dirt and the stone. Gravel sermon, dead and gone alone. told him God's a story that the powerful used to keep the poor assured. He looked at me with his mother's eyes and didn't say a word. Maybe silence is the one true sermon. Maybe silence is what God has heard. Called him a saint when he healed the Watkins girl who'd been sick since she was 3. He laid his hands on her at the river bend, and she walked home clear and free. I knew him when he was just a man, before the stories made him glass. I knew the things he did in his own darkness. I watched the ember years go past. Emberglass saint, emberglass glow. Emberglass is what you make of what you know. Half the fire and half the shine, half the darkness claiming to be divine. Emberglass saints, emberglass clear, showing what the people need to hear. I won't call you liar, I won't call you true. Emberglass saint, I just knew you. He came to me one winter and confessed without the costume of his name. He sat at my table and he wept a long time. He told me everything that he became. He said the Watkins girl had been improving 3 days before he touched her side. He just arrived at the right moment, wept. He said he couldn't hold the tide. Emberglass saint, emberglass glow. Emberglass is what you make of what you know. Half the fire and half the shine, half the darkness claiming to be divine. Emberglass saint, emberglass clear, showing what the people need to hear. I won't call you liar, I won't call you true. Emberglass saint, I just knew you. Died in March, the whole county mourned. They put his likeness in the church. I sat in the back pew at the funeral and watched them worship from my perch. The saint they loved was partly true and partly the story that the story needs. All saints are made of emberglass and darkness. All saints begin as seeds. fresh turned grave, faster than mercy grows in a man. I've watched it cover the ones I've known since the grief inside me began. The grave digger whistles while he works. He's made his peace with the dead. He says the moss don't care who you were, it just grows on what it's fed. Mossgrave, cover me green, cover what I was and all I have been. Mossgrave, grow thick and slow, let no one remember what's buried below. Mossgrave, hold what I gave, let the living keep moving past my grave. Mossgrave, take me into the stone. Mossgrave, I'm ready to go home. His own grave out behind his father's field. He measured it twice with a piece of old rope and then covered it and healed. He lived another 30 years after that. They say he slept soundly each night. Said there's peace in knowing where you're going. Said it settled something right. Mossgrave, cover me green, cover what I was and all I have been. Mossgrave, grow thick and slow, let no one remember what's buried below. Mossgrave, hold what I gave, let the living keep moving past my grave. Mossgrave, take me into the stone. Mossgrave, I'm ready to go home. There are graves in this churchyard with no names, just a number carved in stone. The ones who had no one to write their name, the ones who died alone. I come here on the dark of the moon, and I speak to each unnamed one. I tell them someone knows they were alive before the moss came and was done. The fox died under the woodpile last January. I found it when the snow withdrew. Its bones were clean by March, picked perfect by whatever winter creatures do. I kept the skull on the windowsill through April and talked to it in dark. Something about the hollow of an eye socket helps a man find the mark. Foxbone winter, foxbone cold. Foxbone is how the story gets told. Something dies so something understands what lives beneath the skin of frozen lands. Foxbone winter, foxbone night. Foxbone is what you hold in the light when the living can't give you what you need. Foxbone winter, foxbone creed. My neighbor said it was unhealthy talk to speak to dead things in the house. I said she kept a portrait of her dead husband in every room in the house. She never answered, just looked at her hands. I think she understood. Some grief takes the shape of what it finds. Some grief takes what it should. Foxbone winter, foxbone cold. Foxbone is how the story gets told. Something dies so something understands what lives beneath the skin of frozen lands. Foxbone winter, foxbone night. Foxbone is what you hold in the light when the living can't give you what you need. Foxbone winter, foxbone creed. By April I returned the skull to the woodpile, put it where the fox had lain. The spring came on and covered it with moss, and I didn't need it again. But every January when the cold comes hard and the silence fills the wood, I think about that clean and perfect skull.